Cause it's death to the old me. Like Phoenix says, we're rising from the ashes. I'm done with all their classes. The knowledge is the only thing that matters. Where the sheep and we're living in a pasture. Everything's going wrong. We're not listening to the pastor. It's like a war zone. Life on wrong. Give me a clone. So I'm just on the phone like old souls phone home. Who we are, who we be. Don't feel like liberty to me. Built on the backs of the slaves and the souls of the free. The system is wicked. Look at the life they listed. They call me storyteller, but rebellion just persisted. Here to rescue minds are the ones that choose to listen. I'm an artist, a poet, lover of life, um, preacher, teacher, friend, sister, daughter, world changer, influencer, warrior in some senses. Yeah. Ayana Ife Jendai Davis. Like, that's who I am. Yanni, if if you really know me. And I'm a storyteller. I like to tell my own story, the stories of others, trying to leave behind a rich legacy of like what was happening while I was on this planet. And I'm a survivor. Yeah, can't give up. So I think in a lot of senses that's who I am, all about peace, all about love, all about freedom. And yeah, just been committing to that work for a long time. Like even before I knew I was. And so to see a lot of things like actualize and manifest and like happen both here in the States and overseas, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm up to something. And yeah, work hard to keep all of that going. Even in the midst of like adverse circumstances. Yeah, third generation preacher in my family. My grandfather was a bishop in Bermuda, and then my father is a pastor in New York, and then here I come along and yeah, helped to start a church in Atlanta called Rise Community Church, and then made my way to seminary where I got my Master's of Divinity. And yeah, just keeping at it. I'm a pastor of young adults now at my current church, and I'll probably be ordained next year sometime. And so yeah, just trying to keep people encouraged, really lift up their spirits, give them hope. Show them love, like genuine love, like unconditional love that a lot of folks haven't seen in their lives. So that's what I'm about. That's who I am. My dad always used to say, lead the people in love. And I'm like, when you have that, it's easy, especially when you've been like called to do this work. And yeah, I know a lot of people have been run from the church for one reason or another, and I just want to make like spirituality relatable to my peers and well everybody really. That space where people can be comfortable and be their authentic selves and like still have a connection to God and like want to go deeper within themselves. So I guess that's it, you know, like just loving people, helping people, and being of service however I can.
Um, you talked about your being a third generation pastor. Could you talk a little bit more about the first two generations?
Yeah, for sure. My grandfather from Bermuda, like I said, he was a bishop, and basically, you know, he would come here to the States sometimes to like lead revivals and preach and teach, and they used to call him the cowboy preacher because he would always wear these big old cowboy hats. They actually passed it down on to me, and so I have it. And yeah, he was just a fiery guy, you know, kind of short, um, but always with the Bible in his hand and always like giving these fiery like messages and sermons. I just remember him like hopping all around and moving all around, and whatever he had to do to get the message across is what he did, you know. Like I remember being a little girl and he had this blue church in Bermuda, this sky blue church with white awnings and windows and everything, and yeah, it was just amazing what he could do with words and what he could do with his soul and with his energy, and you know, with divine insight. And you know, people always left just feeling good, you know, feeling like all their cares had just been laid at the altar, and that God was going to just come through like a superhero and take all their troubles away. And he was just an awesome, beautiful man, you know, wherever he was in the world, whether it was here in Texas, in Brooklyn, and, you know, Spanish Point, St. George's in Bermuda. He just had a special a gift, you know. I always think like fiery, like just something in his soul just couldn't stop. He just had to just love on the people. And then my father, Reverend Dr. Edward Davis, that guy, just very charismatic, just big, bubbly, full of like joy and goodness, and does all kind of projects to just make people's livelihoods better. So whether it's expanding the church and making that bigger, or if it's he got his doctorate, basically it was entitled "Welcoming Our Sons Home from Prison." So does all type of prison ministry. He's building this major like affordable housing unit, like 80 apartment unit now in Queens, New York, and like it's just he's gonna keep going from there. And that man loves, you know, like he's a major crier, but like so strong, you know. The two really like go together in my mind, you know. Being able to tap into your emotions and not be afraid to be vulnerable to the people, right? To show them that you're real and they can be real and they can truly be themselves too. That they're fearfully and wonderfully made as well. That there's nothing wrong with them. That we're in this world to feel things and to experience things, and to always know that we have God to like guide us and protect us and watch over us. So we should have no fear. And so I mean, if you talk to people, he's just touched their lives in such a magnanimous way. And so I always had that vision, you know, of leadership and like pastoral leadership growing up. And in my teens, you know, I kind of flipped it. I was like, well, you know, my friends, they're not really going to like read a book. You know, I don't know how consistent or steady they'll be in terms of like reading the Bible. And so I started by doing like underground, like holy hip hop, like Christian hip hop and stuff, and would go to like all these different churches in the different boroughs as a guest and kind of, share my story, share my life of what it meant to be like a PK. And then the messages in my songs. And from there, I was actually able to go overseas and do this work. And so talking to youth in Holland about, hip hop roots in the Bronx, and, talking about how I started my own like ministry, basically just expressing myself and being real about my life and my day to day. And yeah, been overseas several times, like doing that work, and it's just so fulfilling. Like I remember when I went over, like the first or second time, I was like, oh my God, I'm like a teaching artist. This is so cool. I know what my life is about. And so yeah, just I've done that all around the country now. Lived in Atlanta for about 10 years and really was able to influence the scene there by starting a church, by starting Rise, and then also I would do these showcases where artists that I thought were amazing, just give them a platform, and now here we are 6 years later, and they're like, oh my God, like, you let me do my first show in Atlanta, and like they're like blowing up on like Spotify and online and on YouTube, and they're like, thank you so much. And I'm just like, wow, like it's cool to do what you've been purposed in the world, and it truly has an impact on others, and me, I'm just like, yo, like I got this venue, like we got some lights, we got some instruments, like let's do it, invite your people, let's go. And so having started the Peace Peoples movement, all my Peace People would come out and support, these up and coming artists. And it was a really good time, like, and I'm reminded of it every time, like some artist is like, yo, like, thank you, you gave me the courage to get started. And they were like all shy and meek back then, and now they're like playing for major stages, and I'm like, oh, it's beautiful.
I think your specific culture of being from Bermuda, and even like some of your family traditions and the religion that you're a part of. I mean, you have a deep history as far as like, where you're from, and then you have a deep history as far as like what your family does. That's like you said, your third generation has obviously played a big role in like your identity. Like what are those things, if you can describe them a little bit, and how have they helped develop who you are now?
Yeah. Well, growing up in the church, it was all about like the village, My parents were busy people, My dad had a church, and my mom had a daycare in Brooklyn, and they were working. They were doing a lot for the community to help others, And it was always my aunties and my sisters and like my uncles and big brothers in the church who would be there for me, who would make sure I ate, make sure I was taken care of, watching over me, protecting me, giving me guidance, making sure I was taken care of. So I had family, but then I had family and more family that was always there for me, always protecting me, always imparting knowledge and wisdom, teaching me how to pray, teaching me how to meditate, teaching me about my history and my past and where we come from as a people, and we go to Kwanzaa celebrations, or we'd have some at the church, at people's homes, and so learning about unity, learning about cooperative economics, learning about faith, learning about creativity even. And so always having that enrichment day after day, it really made me strong, in my identity and in my vision, in terms of my vision and my purpose, and just seeing people doing their thing, like whether they were selling art, African art, whether they were business people, whether they were artists or singers or poets, or everybody was just doing what they were meant to do in the world. And I was like, yeah, that's gonna be me too. And so that religious background, that church background, that like belief in God and belief in self and belief in community is what helped shape me. And they're like principles that I stand on now. And so I'm thankful for the way that I was raised and like the consciousness that was placed inside of me and the education that I was given and provided, because nobody, I can't take that away from me. It's with me wherever I go, whether, like my time in India, my time in Holland and the Netherlands and Germany and Finland, like wherever I go in the world, I have my education, I have my faith, I have my hope, I have my love. And the memories, like the memories of my godparents, and memories of the lessons of like what our griots used to do, in Africa, and how that's gotten us to where we are today with like hip hop and spoken word. And I'm grateful. Like even when I would go visit Bermuda every summer and be on the island, learning that history and about Mama Doe and how she made her way from Peru to Bermuda, and now we have like all of these different like lines of family that all started with her, as the first person that we can trace back to of our lineage. It's just fascinating. Or going to family reunions in Bermuda and finding out this person is my cousin that I thought was just my good friend, and be like, oh my God, like our family is so expansive. And just the beauty of that whole culture, like the Gumbes and seeing them dance around, which is very similar to our native folks here, who have a similar garb and a similar dress, and the importance of drums. And it's just fascinating how like interconnected the world is, and how Black and brown folks, we have this gene, this God factor, like this soul factor that they've never been able to take from us. And so just proud to be a part of that in my own little way while I'm here. So, Atlanta is just, it's such a hub, it's such a Black mecca. Having gone to Spelman, I was connected with Spelman, Morehouse, and Clark so closely. And then Georgia State would always come over. I remember performing a couple times at like Georgia Tech. And so just kind of being able to move through that whole circus, UGA, having done like this big hip hop panel with like all of these major names. And so Georgia was good to me. Atlanta was good to me. It was just a magical time that I'll never forget, which really gave me the courage and the insight and the like revelations even about myself of like what I could do in other places. So from there, went to the Bay and was really focused on my education and getting my Master's of Divinity while I was in the Bay, but then would also go out and do a lot of community work. I was teaching mindfulness and hip hop for a couple years, so being in the Richmond area, out in California, and really having an influence on like middle school and high schoolers, and showing them like you can express yourselves in like a bunch of different ways, and also hear yourself and hear your life and be more in alignment with like who you are and what you're supposed to be doing here on the earth. And so that was like a major honor and privilege. And then my time in the Bay was up. I was like, it's time for something else, and was able to transfer down here to Los Angeles fairly easily and finish up my degree at Claremont School of Theology. And yeah, so I've just been here doing that work, like committing to know myself better, committing to know spirit better, get in my word, like whatever that word is, whether it's the Quran or the Bible or like Tibetan Buddhist texts, like whatever it is, like books about ancient Kemet, and just studying, to show myself approved and to like really know who I am, who is Yanni, what I'm about. And so I feel like having been in LA, this amount of time, I'm like ready to just get back to it. Get back to the music, back to writing books and releasing more clothing with like positive messages, and yeah, just being all that I know that I am, like presenting all of my gifts to the world. I've been blessed with new life, with like a second chance. I was diagnosed with kidney failure on December 16th, 2016. ESPN flew me from LA to Atlanta to shoot this like women's empowerment movement, is a movement for Women's History Month, to feature me as like a motivator or something in the film. And everything was cool the first couple of days of filming, and then I think it was like the third or fourth day, I was running up and down like at major streets in Atlanta. So I was on Peachtree Street, the main one downtown. And I'm running up this hill, and as I'm running up the hill, I collapse, and I'm like vomiting, and I can't stop, and I'm shaking uncontrollably, and I can't get warm, and it was scary. I didn't know what was going on. And so luckily my brother was still in Atlanta, living in Atlanta. He scooped me up. We rushed to the hospital. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm dehydrated. Like they'll give me some IV and maybe keep me overnight and I'll be on my way. But when the doctors came back to see me after drawing blood, they informed me that I would not be leaving anytime soon, and that both of my kidneys were functioning at less than 10%. And they informed me that like kidney failure and kidney disease is definitely a silent killer. And had that not happened, like another day or two, like I could have been gone. So, as much as it, was confusing and a disappointment, it was also a blessing in disguise. Like, it took for that to happen, like for me to be flown to Atlanta and like asked to be a part of this project and then fall out like even while it's happening. Oh yeah.
Yeah, cause you stopped at, you know, you felt some kind of, you felt like it happened for a reason.
Mhm.
And I guess like it, it whatever was gonna happen was gonna happen, right? But it's ironic about the timing. Is that what you're kind of getting to, or was it something else you saw there?
Yeah, okay. um yeah, it was just a blessing. Everything happened how it did, when it did. And being in one of my homes when it happened, like being in Atlanta where I have so much support, so much love, so many people that care about me. My brother who was able to come and just swoop in and get me to the hospital, super quick. And having a home in Atlanta was like an easy transition from the hospital back into my house there. And just feeling wrapped with love, surrounded with love during that difficult time. I was so weak, I was so frail, I had lost so much weight. And I mean, I could barely open up the car door, like I couldn't walk far distances, and just so cold, like cold on the inside and the outside. Couldn't figure out why that had to happen to me. But somehow through it all, like I'm still here. I'm still blessed with life every day, I actually cherish every breath that I take in, and recognizing like the wind, the air is spirit, and it gives me life. Allows me to move and function and create. So just thankful for spirit and how even in those nights where I didn't think I would make it, like I made it through. Like the sunshine actually came, and I just learned to be grateful for everything. The good, the bad, the misunderstood. And that gratefulness piece, I think, is really important. I think, like spirituality has always been a part of us, a part of our history, a part of our path. Whether it was the ring shout or dancing in circles, and whether we were just giving an inspirational word to our people, right? Even before there were these like holy texts, we knew what it was to tell stories and to teach each other and to guide each other and to impart wisdom into the next generation and into our babies, basically. And so I think there's just an innate thing in us that allows us to connect to spirit, however that looks, however that feels. As Black people, wherever we landed in the world and on the earth, whether it's Yoruba, Ifa, Christianity, Buddhism, like some variation or mix of the two, we've always been able to connect, connect to God, connect to spirit. to go inside, to listen to that still small voice that's guiding us and leading us. And we just pass that down from generation to generation. Whether we were out in the woods, in nature, just knowing where to look, where to go, what food to eat, what plants to eat, how to heal our bodies. It's in us. It's in our makeup. To be good, to be righteous, to heal.
So it's almost like you're hinting towards the fact that it really doesn't matter what religious, it's not about the religious, practice, but it's about the spirituality of it.
Absolutely. I struggled with that for a long time. I was like, yeah, I'm Christian, and that's the only way, and the Bible and Jesus, and that's the only way to get to heaven. But now I'm on some, look, I want heaven on earth for everybody. Like, religion has kept us so separate. It's been so divisive. It's really a white patriarchal paradigm. It's never left much room for other cultures and other people and other practices to be a part of it. And when I looked at it that way, I was like, whoa, something's wrong here. If Christianity is the reason for so many wars and so much violence and destruction around the world, we gotta look at this thing a different way. We gotta flip this so that it makes sense, and that like we can be united, like be a united people. And just wanted to be more expansive in my understanding of the world and how all of this came to be, how people nurture themselves and grow themselves, and find spirit without all of the constructs and restrictions. And so much had been dictated to me as a child that, like, I did take a break. I took a break from church, from people, from whatever they were telling me, and kind of had to find God for myself. And in doing so, my mind expanded, my worldview expanded, my love for other people and their past and their journeys expanded. And I could never go back to that the finite mind or understandings that I once had that said there are no interpretations of the Bible. You just have to take it literally and as it is. That's oppressive to me now. Passages in the Bible like coming against who I am as a person. Women can't preach. Women can't do this. All the homophobic passages that are there, like, that people really will throw in your face and make you feel less than and feel like you're not deserving of God's love. And it just wasn't the right way anymore. And so that expansiveness and like recognizing like the universe and the cosmos and the abyss and the void, and you can't put limits on God or what God is or what spirit is or infinite intelligence, infinite creativity. The divine spirit, wisdom, Holy Spirit, Christ consciousness. There's no limit to that. And so having spirituality freed me up in a lot of ways.
You know what?
whether it was loneliness, thoughts of suicide and depression, anger, whatever it was, like just committing myself to listen. And so I think listening and wholly listening, like tapping in and having sympathy and empathy for people and learning that from other people at a young age is what has gotten me here. It wasn't so much the religion that kept me. It was spirituality, people's spirits. That thing that was deep inside of them versus that like head book. This is what it says, and right, like
yeah.
That was the knowledge. That was the stuff that stuck with me. That's what came up, you know, times when I was overseas and by myself and like couldn't get back to my housing because there were like rabid dogs in the front of my sleeping quarters. Like that's what kept me at night. When I was alone in like Holland, like on the wrong side of the country. I'm supposed to be over here with the folks that are putting me up, and having to just like be in the cold for a couple hours until I could figure the situation out. You know, or even nights dealing with my condition that I have now, not being able to breathe, in so much pain, having experienced 2 of my ribs being popped out and dislocated and going through the pain of them having to be popped back in. Neuropathy, experiencing neuropathy and edema with my feet. I couldn't walk for days on end. My feet are swollen and having burning sensations and can't figure out what's wrong, what my system is lacking, why this is happening. You know, not being able to eat, losing my appetite for months on end. And just being confused and like, oh my God, like I need to eat, but I can't. Like, experiences of nausea out of nowhere and like nothing fixing it. Issues with my nervous system and the doctor's looking at me like, I don't know, we don't know what to do. Like we don't know how to fix this. It's just been a interesting journey, and having been through so much, that's why I call myself a warrior. Like, having been knocked down and shot down in so many ways, you know, whether it's the queer thing, whether it's the black thing, whether it's the woman thing, whether it's the natural hair thing, whether it's the way I dress, like, too loud, you know, like too in people's face, like fighting too hard for justice. Like, that's not how you should do it. Being in all or predominantly white institutions and being told or shown in a lot of ways that I didn't belong there. Professors and their racism and their misunderstandings of blackness and black culture and where I come from. And so that's why I'm a warrior, you know, like these institutions, recognizing these institutions and how they mess with your mind, you know, and they try to strip everything that you are away from you so that you can conform and make it through. And I've always been defiant, you know, I've always been resistant of that. and sitting down with the heads of these institutions and being like, what you're doing here is not right. This is not community. This is not Christian community. This is not of God. And then being shunned, it's like this black sheep or, whatever. Black sheep. Yeah, I mean, almost losing my mind at the expense of schools, hospitals, organizations. And I find myself like always being that one, that voice that speaks up and is like, no, this isn't it. But there's nothing else for me to do. Just gotta do it. If I feel a burning in my heart about something, I see it through to the end. And just thankful for that courage that comes from my upbringing, comes from being around fighters and activists and changers, social changers and community organizers, prayer warriors, like that's all I know. So when I step outside of that bubble and I see things ain't right, I don't run back and hide and shrink back. I just gotta speak up.
So do you have any last words? Anything that you want to kind of put out there into the universe?
Yeah, just keep growing, keep glowing, keep thriving and surviving. A new day is coming. Be peace, no peace. Live peace.
I love it.